Alright everybody, we're back to the next video. If you've been following my channel, watching my other videos, you will know that I recently moved into a house with a much larger property. So with that comes different needs for maintenance. This is my Toro Time Master. These are kind of a unique push mower as they're 30 inches instead of standard push mowers between 20 and 22 inches. So I got this because the previous property it took too long to mow, and this reduced that time about 50% faster. So unfortunately, this new property being much larger than the old one, this is no longer sufficient. This takes over 2 hours to mow the yard with this thing, and although I love it and it is very, very useful, I can't spend the time mowing. So it works really well still. It'll end up getting rehomed and somebody else will be able to enjoy its capabilities. So its replacement, ta-da! This is a Cadet. It's the XT2 Enduro series, which is kind of the, from the research and stuff, the XT1 is a basic residential, is its market. This is a little more advanced, a little heavier duty residential, and then the XT3 is when it gets into the heavier, more commercially type things. But in these XT2 lines are several models. The specific one is the SLX50, which stands for Super Lawn Tractor, and then the 50 is the deck size, so it's a 50-inch cut. If I read these codes correctly, I don't work for Cadet, they don't sponsor this. I actually bought this. Is the LX stands for Lawn Tractor, and the S is the Super Lawn Tractor. They have just regular LX models, which are the basic lawn tractors. They have LA models, which are XT1s, and then there's a GX and like GSX, I believe, which would be the garden tractors, which are much more heavier duty than these. So the reason I went with this model is it's one of the few that actually has bearings in the front wheels instead of bushings, so it'll last much longer and it's heavier duty. It's cast iron front axles, which I believe they're doing to all their tractors now. 50-inch fabricated cutting deck. Now there's some, I don't know, there's some disagreement on whether stamped decks are better or fabricated decks are better. Here's the deal. Commercial is using fabricated decks. There's a reason that they're doing that, probably because they're more durable. I know John Deere's are still using stamped decks on nearly all their models, but they are using a heavier gauge steel. So this one also is the taller tire. It's a better for traction and even terrain. Let's take a look here. The old Engiroonies. Kawasaki FR651, so it's 21.5 horse, 2 cylinders, V12. And then the important part with tractors are the transmissions. This is a Tough Torque. I want to say it's K46, which is it's kind of the lower end of the Tough Torque, but it's plenty for most residential use and for my uses. Now, I debated long and hard. I grew up on John Deere tractors, and John Deere makes at this time, it's an X350, which is similar in size and actually has the exact same motor and the exact same transmission. Why didn't I go with it? It's the only real difference was the fabricated 50-inch deck on this and the stamped steel 48 on the John Deere. Not a huge deal, but the John Deere was $1,300 more. Holy crap, that's it. Also, Cub Cadet has a really neat feature for mowing in reverse, because it's a safety issue. On the Cubs, so you start your tractor, turn your key. To mow in reverse, you kick the key back 1 notch, and then you push the little safety button, and then you can mow in reverse the entire time. The John Deere, I have to push the button and hold it every time I want to mow in reverse. Not a huge deal, but it is kind of a pain and a big difference. And then this is the blade engagement at PTO. I believe all of them are electric at this point. So, awesome. I am incredibly excited. I've never owned a tractor. I've used tons and tons of them over the years, but this would be my first personal. But before I can use it, we got to do a little work on it and get it set up. So let me get set up here, and I'll show you what we've got to get. All right, so we are currently underneath the mower deck. What I've done is I have inflated the tires to the proper pressures. This one is 14 front, 24 rear. That says that actually on the tire. And then the max pressure for them is 35, but that's the burst pressure, so you don't want to go that high. So that's done. Next, I want to check the blades and actually sharpen them. Now, one cool reason I got this tractor is because there are no tools required to remove the mower blades. It's their new fast attach system. And if you can see, this collar here is actually what holds the blade. You push that collar up real good, and you actually turn the blade right off of it. So let me do it to the middle blade here. You push the collar, and then you twist the blade. And there's a lot of pressure on there, so ideally 2 hands would be good, but I don't have 2 hands to get in there real big like that. There we go, turned and off. And I'm going to do that to all 3 blades. Let's move it here. And you see what happens is that collar sits in this little S-shaped notch, and then it has these prongs that come down and bite these outer holes. And this one helps keep the blades on. I chose this feature because I like to keep good, sharp mower blades. Makes for a better cut in the lawn, makes for a healthier lawn. So I take them off rather frequently. On the Time Master, I would sharpen my blades about every 3 or 4 mows. So I'll get a second set of blades for these, keep them sharp, and that way I just have to lift it, swap them out. So I'm going to get the 3rd blade off, and then we're going to go sharpen them. Right. As you can see, these blades are actually pretty sharp from the factory. The rust here is either from when I brought it home, it was super dusty and I rinsed it off, or it's been sitting on the showroom for a long time. This actually came right off the showroom floor. So there's literally hundreds of ways to sharpen mower blades and hundreds of tools to do it. Anything from grinders to fixtures and jigs, and things that range from $5 all the way up to several $100 to get mower blades perfectly sharp at an exact angle of cut. I don't believe it's that critical. I mean, I sharp irons for hand planes, and I got jigs for that, and I don't think the degree on a lawnmower is actually going to be as critical as that, so I don't worry about those type of things. My preferred method is to clamp it down to a good solid surface, and I take a grinder. It's called a flap wheel. It's a bunch of sanding discs kind of stacked like a knocked over deck of cards, and all I do is just kind of kiss it a little bit. And then I just touch up the bottom of here. Take that burr right off of there. So, good and sharp. Angle's not as critical. I'm going to get it done to all 6 cutting edges, and then we'll be back and get these put back on. Alright, so I'm going to try to show you this mechanism in a little bit better light. We're through the, this is the chute on the side, but this collar lifts up, and that's what holds the blade on. So we're going to take the blade, and we're going to push that collar up. And you can do it one-handed, it's just easier to hold it and then twist the blade in the collar seats and just make sure it's fully seated. But that's pretty sweet. Big fan of that. I'm gonna use that quite a lot. Now I am gonna turn my blades side to side because the next step, we're gonna lower the mower back down to level, and then we're going to level the deck. So stay tuned for that. Alright, so we are now in a position to do what's called level the deck. The deck kind of floats underneath the tractor, and it's suspended with various pieces of hardware, but it has adjustments from left to right and front to rear. And what you want to do is you want to level it with the tractor for best results. So this particular tractor, every tractor is going to have its own exact procedures, but there are similarities. In this one, you measure from the outside two blades. So it'll be this blade and the opposite side, and you want them perpendicular to the tractor to begin with. And what we're going to do is level side to side. So I'm going to use my combination square here to get a baseline measurement, which on this blade, the tip of the cutting edge is touching right at the 3-inch mark. I have the mower set for 3 inches. You don't want to set it for the highest, you don't want to set it for the lowest, you want to set it for somewhere in between. I've already measured the other side, and I'm about a 1/16 of an inch difference. Not the end of the world difference, but enough where I want to level it. They do make, again, various tools for leveling. I'm using the combination square because that's what I have readily available. They also have a gauge that sits outside and has a little finger that reaches up to that cutting edge, and you can read it outside. May end up with one of those because it's super handy. And it's easier to read than the other side. This side's not so bad because I have this chute here I can pull up out of the blade. See the blade, the other side I actually have to look underneath while I'm doing it. So, since I am off the 1/16 of an inch and I do want to level, I have to do some adjustments. And on this tractor, I don't know if you can see them here, there is a linkage. And that linkage is the level adjusters. So what I have to do is I have to get in there with a open-end wrench and a socket, because that is if I can describe it real easily, it's a threaded rod with a nut, or a threaded rod that goes through a shaft with a nut and then a lock nut on it. So what I need to do is hold the rod with the lower nut, break the seal on the lock nut, adjust with the lower, and then bring the lock nut back down on it. So this is going to be kind of a trick. It's going to be kind of hard to film. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to actually do it. Let's do some tripod adjustments here. See if I can't get you guys a reasonable view of me doing this. Nope, I won't. One perk of this tractor is it has oversized tires. One downfall of this tractor is it has oversized tires. And trying to show inside of that wheel well with my fat fingers is not going to work. One thing you do have to watch out for is when you raise one side, you'll end up lowering the other, so you don't want to raise too much. But here's what we will do. Since the other side is a hair low, this side is spot on. It says small adjustments may be done on the left, so we're going to move over to the left. I'm going to do the adjustments, and then you can watch what it does over here. Alright, so I got a little adjustment at the other side. So that didn't do much here. Let me go measure my other edge. Alright, so that didn't move it hardly at all. Let's bring this guy back. Watch that cutting edge, very sharp. That guy in there. Let's see what we can do. Alright, I'm not sure if you can see it from there, but it lowered this side by raising the other. Let me check the other. I need to raise that up a little. Alright, so it's 1/16 of a little 3. Let me double check the other. Alright, so that is on the money for the lateral leveling. Now I need to do front to back, so let me get set up for that. Alright, so now I need to change or adjust the front to rear level. I'm going to take my big fat hands and combination square and put it on that front, that leading cutting edge, with that center blade parallel to the rest of the lawnmower. And I am the 2 5/8 mark-ish. And then I will take the combination, put it at the rear cutting edge. If I can get my big fat arm and hand down under there. There we go. And I am at the 2 3/8 mark. So the specs on this mower is 1/4 to 3/8 difference. It's 1/4 to 3/8 low in the front. I'm at 1/4, so I'm not going to do any adjustments. If I did need to do adjustments, the front adjusting bolts or lock nut set is right there. There's the gold lock nut, and there's a regular nut underneath. And I would use that for my adjustments, but good, I don't need to. And the purpose of having it nose down a little, there's a couple different purposes. One, they say so the deck doesn't pull anything underneath of it that'll get trapped. So if you're perfectly level or you're low in the back, you pull something big underneath of it, it gets stuck under the deck. I don't buy that. You shouldn't be running over that type of stuff anyway. The other is you want the cut of the grass blade on the leading edge at the front of the deck and not perfectly level. And the reason for that is so you don't actually double cut the blade. The first time you cut the grass blade, it'll be a nice clean cut. If you double cut it on the backstroke of the deck, it'll tear. And that tear allows for diseases, funguses, things like that to get in and bite. So we don't want to do that. Now, next step that we're going to do is the anti-scalping wheels. So every mower deck has their own version. This one actually happens to have 5. It's got 4 of these wheels that go on the deck itself, and then it has a front center roller that does not look to be adjustable. So what I do need to do is I need to adjust where I want these. Now I mow at the absolute highest setting, 99.97% of the time. I do scalp a couple times a year, just for good measure. When I do my aerating, detaching, that type of stuff. So right now I'm going to put these scalping wheels at the absolute lowest setting possible because I want it to reasonably match my mowing height. So, ta-da. I'm going to set all four to the lowest depth possible, and then they'll be good to go. The trick is with these scalping wheels is you actually don't want them touching the ground. So if we do, drop the discharge here. So if I take the mower down to there, it is roughly 2.5 inches. The wheel's touching the ground. You don't want to do that. It'll wear the wheel out really, really, really fast if you mow like this. So the whole idea of the scalping wheel is while you are mowing, if you happen to get to an area or a pitch or something that the deck may come in contact with the ground, the wheels will support it and push the deck up and keep it from hitting the bottom. So you want them free floating. So let me get that done and then cleaned up, and maybe we'll see some results. And I need to mow it lower, actually, probably. 4 inches is a little high for this, but that'll get the job done. So that is kind of my initial setup of the SLX50. I didn't record it, but I did grease all the bushings, bearings, and fittings. Several of them on here, so put your own manual on yours. So it'll be a great asset and force multiplier